And what are they doing at this point? Let's play this clip. This is Dawn Wooten. I mentioned this yesterday. We don't have a huge amount of public substantiation for what she's talking about, at least in some respects. The coronavirus stuff, I think, is quite obvious because there are some records that will back this up. The doctor that she's talking about has been named. There are 7 immigrants with representation who have backed up her claims here. I think we got to be careful about, until there's more investigation, but we do have a whistleblower and we do have attorneys who feel like their clients have substantiated this. Here's Dawn Wooden. She was on Chris Hayes's program last night. She is the whistleblower from who worked at a private detention center for immigrants, essentially a private prison. They were providing no protection for these people in terms of COVID. And reportedly, many of these immigrant women were taken to a doctor where they had hysterectomies and were not told that's what was happening, and there was no reason for them.
You talk about in the complaint a hearing from women who are detained there, talking about a specific doctor performing hysterectomies, referring to him as a uterus collector. Tell us about how you heard about this doctor and what women said about their experiences with him.
You have detained women. I had several detained women on numerous occasions that would come to me and say, Miss Wooten, I had hysterectomy. Why? I had no answers as to why they had those procedures. And one lady walked up to me here this last time around between October of 19 until July the 2nd. And she said, what is he? Is he the uterus collector? Does he collect uteruses? And I asked her, what does she mean? And she says, everybody that I talked to has had a hysterectomy. And you just don't know what to say. I mean, I don't have a answer for why that they would come to me and they would say, is he the uterus collector?
I mean, that's where we're at this point. And again, there are attorneys who represent 7 of these immigrant women who substantiate their side of that story. And I've seen stories that have named the doctor. I don't know if they're quite, let me see. I think it's an NBC story, in which case I feel a little more confident in mentioning it. Not 100% sure if it has. But NBC, the whistleblower Dawn Wooden says that Irwin, which is run by the private corporation LaSalle Corrections, has underreported COVID-19 cases, knowingly placed staff and detainees at risk of contracting the virus, neglected medical complaints, and refused to test symptomatic detainees, among other dangerous practices. The legal advocacy group Project South has submitted a complaint to the Office of Inspector General on Wooten's behalf, which also included testimony collected from interviews with detainees. This is not the only for-profit detention company to face scrutiny for dangerous mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic. It goes on to talk more about that. People are a little bit tentative about reporting on the hysterectomies because it is an appalling, and frankly, you're talking about this is a crime against humanity. And so genocide. It is genocide. It is and so people are being circumspect about it, and they should. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to speculate as to like I've seen at different points what appears to be the name of the doctor, but I don't know these websites, and so I'm just not going to. I'm not going to go there. It's sort of it will get reported out at this point if it is real. And I suppose you can make the argument that like this is not something. Is it really that far fetched? I mean, we still have children who have been separated from their parents by the U.S. government, kidnapped by the U.S. government, not returned to their parents. Months, in some cases, years later. I think people would be surprised to know that it was, I guess, early in the 20th century, not even that early. The U.S. government, the Supreme Court found that it was okay for the U.S. and institutions to provide unconsented to hysterectomies. But this is 100 years later, and you've got immigrant women who are like, why did I have a hysterectomy? So we'll see. But it's disturbing. I wonder if it bears out that that's the case. Is that sufficient? Is that a sufficient difference?
I just find it depressing in the context of the debate we had about whether ICE camps, we can call them concentration camps, when that's just what they are descriptively. And that makes me pessimistic for ability to face reality on this stuff, widely anyway.
We'll see. I mean, I find it hard to believe this is a wide policy. My guess is if this bears out to be the case, that what we're looking at is someone is a doctor who was trying to, commit some type of fraud in some weird way.
Cash in on it.
A billing fraud. But of course, if Don Wooten knows it and reports it up the chain of command and nobody does anything about it, is there really a material difference about it? Right? Does it really have to be a plan that is being executed for it to be heinous and criminal? Or is it enough that it's just like, we don't care what happens to these people? Somebody's making a buck by performing hysterectomies, unnecessary hysterectomies on these immigrants, whatever. I will tell you right now that if it is the case that there is a doctor who this private prison essentially was using, and the doctor was running some type of, I don't know, billing scam, and undoubtedly somebody back at the private prison is getting a kickback, that the right will say, like, this was just a guy who was committing fraud. But when you set up a system like this, where job number one is profit, profiting off of these people as if they are pieces of meat, then of course this type of thing follows. It's unbelievable. All right, we got to take a quick break. Head into the fun half. We have some decent news, I think. I'm trying to see. Breonna Taylor's family got $12 million, and there were some police reforms, but they did not concede that they made a mistake. Louisville. I guess COVID's relief strategy is beginning to fall apart. That's not positive. I guess the upside is just that, only 35% of the country approve of Donald Trump's COVID response. And so that suggests that there's 65% of Americans who are sentient it and can be aware of what's going on around them. That is, I guess that's positive, right? Just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible, folks. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com.